trying to give lessons to young college students who sit there and go to college and are learning but not truly engaged. You have to tell them they need to be engaged. I told them about when I talked to college students in America, how I asked them to raise their hands if they haven't voted. And you see many hands go up in college classes across America of young people who don't vote. And I told them that I usually congratulate college students for not voting. And they wondered, why would I congratulate a college student for not going out and voting? And it's very simple. Because you don't vote, you'll end up paying for my Medicare, you'll end up paying for my Social Security, you'll end up paying the brunt of the money because I do vote. And if indeed young people don't want to carry that brunt and they want to share it, they need to become involved and become engaged, because politicians do know who votes. They know the age bracket of people that go to the polls each and every year to in fact vote. And because I vote and I'm in that age bracket that votes, I get things from the government that the government thinks I need, but truly I can afford myself. I get discounts I don't need. And the family with 2 or 3 children, the young family, walk into a restaurant and they subsidize my meal because I've reached the age where people, I guess, feel sorry for me. And I feel sorry for the young couple who's trying to get a grip on life and to get started and create jobs themselves at some point in their lives. It really is about job creation. It's about getting an economy moving and moving forward and lighting the fires of entrepreneurship to allow people to move forward, not to stifle it, but to, in fact, help it grow. And you help it grow by not taxing it and burdening it with government regulation, but in fact, by unleashing the power in it, by letting it have tax incentives to in fact grow and in fact go out and build an economy and put people to work. Because my father knew when he became president of the United States that in fact if he could put people back to work, it would bring more money to the federal government, not less money to the federal government. And he was absolutely correct. And then a young man asked me today, he said, was your father pragmatic when it came to the former Soviet Union? Or what was he? And I said, my father was pragmatic when it came to policies in the United States, as far as our country's policies where he had to deal with the House of Representatives or the Senate of the United States. You have to be pragmatic. After all, you're negotiating with Congress. But because he didn't make politics personal, he kept it on the political level, he was able to do so much and lower taxes and do the things he needed to do. But when it comes to foreign policy, my father didn't have to be pragmatic at all. Because the President of the United States, he can play in the foreign policy area all he wants by himself. And I said he was not pragmatic at all when it came to the Soviet Union, when it came to the Soviet bloc. He knew what he wanted to do since he was a very young man. I remember in 1962 when he debated with Robert Kennedy. Robert Kennedy said to my father, he was the Attorney General, what can we do? What do you want my brother and I to do when it comes to what's going on in Europe? My father said simply, you can tear down the wall. He said it in 1962, he said it in 1987, and in 1989, it came down. This country of Poland was so important to Ronald Reagan. And it was important because he believed in the Polish people. He believed in their pursuit of a free and a democratic Poland. He wasn't pragmatic about that. Those were his beliefs that he dealt with, he understood, and he wanted to do whatever he could to, in fact, free this great, great country. He went against conventional wisdom in that belief. He went against it. People said, you shouldn't get involved. There was detente between the Soviet bloc and the United States. That was what foreign policy was. As long as you're not hurting us, then it's okay what you do to your own. My father changed the foreign policy of the United States in 4 words. after asked a question about how he felt. And the 4 words simply were this: Mr. Reagan, how do you feel about the Cold War? How do you feel about the Soviet bloc? How do you plan to deal with it? My father said, it's very simple. We win, they lose. The foreign policy of the United States changed, and the world changed with it. While that was all going on, there were people in Poland, like Valensa. What was going on in Gdansk, at the shipyard, with Solidarity. Some young man who wanted to see Poland to be free. There was a pope at the Vatican, Pope John Paul, who he himself said, what can I do? How do I get involved to do the same? And then Ronald Reagan stepped in and said, we in America, I as the president, I am here to do whatever I can to help free Poland. And they enlisted the help of Margaret Thatcher and others, other great leaders of our time. And ultimately in 1985, Mikhail Gorbachev would come to the forefront in the Soviet bloc. And finally they would bring him to the table, and the rest is history. Poland, Hungary, Germany became free. There are so many stories of what people went through to, in fact, become free. Whether it's the German woman coming over a wall to, in fact, come to freedom, or the young soldier suiting up in Europe to go to France, to go to Pointe du Hoc, or the Catton Forest, where so much happened. Those stories we cannot forget. Those stories must be told.